What if Vader snapped after finding out the Empire sold slaves? Let's explore the depths of it in the video. The air is thick with smoke and burning metal as Vader strides through the ruined battlefield. It was hard fought, but in the end, the Imperial Stormtroopers were victorious. Yet there was something odd about this rebellion. While clone insurgents usually focused on simply freeing clones, this one was targeting an Imperial logistics base. He makes his way through to the headquarters, where the rebel leaders are waiting. Their headquarters was a shattered ATTE walker, its legs twisted at unnatural angles, and holes were burned through its hull from a TIE fighter. In the center of its troop bay, a group of clones are bound and left kneeling. At the head is Captain Rex. His armor, though battered and scorched, still bears faint traces of his blue markings. Despite his predicament, he holds his head high.
Captain Rex, you have fallen far from the glory of the Republic. Explain yourself.
I could say the same with you, Lord Vader. I've seen the Empire's glory. I saw it on Dissix, what your troops did to the Governor under the guise of liberation. I saw it in the Outer Rim, where your so-called Empire enslaves entire worlds. And I saw it on Kamino.
You dare speak of oppression. You were bred for war. Your purpose was to serve. You abandoned that purpose. You betrayed your oath.
Spoken like a true slaver.
Vader's lightsaber ignites in an instant, hovering over the clone's head as he glares down at him. The room goes deadly quiet, save for the hum of his blade.
You would be wise to choose your next words very carefully, especially when you use that word.
Tell me, Lord Vader, what would your mother say if she saw what the Empire has become?
For the briefest of moments, the mechanical rhythm of Vader's breathing falters. Then he snatches up the clone, lifts him off the ground, and slams him against the walls of the walker, sending sparks flying.
Let us be very clear, Captain. I am no slaver.
No? Tell me, did you ever check this ship's cargo?
The pause is enough for Rex, who smirks.
Maybe you were right. You're no slaver. Just another slave.
Take the prisoners to the ship. Now.
The stormtroopers wisely obey, taking the clones and leaving Vader to look over the control console of the walker. Although their job is to destroy the enemy headquarters, he can't help but look over the data. He activates the databanks and examines what they have to offer. Most of their mission logs are what he expects. There are raids to Imperial facilities for supplies, processing centers for clones, and prisons where they are housed. But as he looks deeper, he begins to see other missions he did not expect in facilities he never heard of. An Imperial space station over Geonosis, prisons and garrisons in former CIS territories, and a Trandoshan Imperial garrison on Kashyyyk. But while it doesn't go into detail, Vader feels a chill run down his spine. He knows that these facilities would have more valuable resources, except for one. He secretly downloads this information before destroying the facility as command. Instead of returning to headquarters, Vader takes his fighter and heads to the coordinates on these databanks. The nearest planet is Geonosis, and as he arrives, the sight that greets him sends chills running down his spine. Over the hives of the Geonosians, there are hundreds of stormtroopers with full armor and forward bases. It looks as though they are preparing for war, but instead of attacking the Geonosians, they are herding them out. The bugs are shackled on their hands and legs, being led onto freighters much like the ones Vader saw. While he has no love for the Geonosians, Vader cannot help but feel the wrongness of these actions. However, the other planets do not have anything better to offer. He finds Wookiees, CIS citizens, the same people he had liberated back in the Clone Wars, now in chains, but the chains of the Empire. When Anakin returns to his ship, his rage is radiating off his body. The crew wisely gives him plenty of room as he makes his way down to the detention facility where Rex is waiting for him.
So, how was your trip, General?
So it is true, then. What is the extent of this slave network?
You're asking the wrong guy. I have no idea how deep it goes, but it could span the entire galaxy.
Impossible. There is no way the Empire could have created a network so quickly.
Are you sure? This is simply the logical extension of what the Republic has already been doing with us clones. We were slaves. We just didn't realize it at the time. It wouldn't be too hard to convince people to expand it.
However deep it goes, I will put a stop to it. But I require assistance.
Are you asking me for help?
Do you prefer to remain here?
General Skywalker, I can never forgive you for what you've done. In fact, I'd go as far to say as I hate you. But I hate this Empire more.
Vader first gathers the crew of the Star Destroyer in the hangar and announces his intentions.
It has occurred to me that the Empire is conducting a great injustice that I can no longer abide by. Though they promise freedom, safety, and security, the Empire is involved in the slave trade. I do not know how deep it goes, but I will have my answers. I ask you, men, to join me.
The crew all look at one another. A ripple of surprise rushes through them, but the revelation has its effect. For many, they only wish to live their lives peacefully and enjoy some peace. Hundreds of men begin to salute Vader until most of the crew stands before him. Those who do not are dealt with swiftly. The Sith Lord cuts them down to ensure there are no loose ends. The Star Destroyer then breaks off from its position and disappears into hyperspace. Many Imperials try to contact them, wondering what's happened, and it is as if they have just disappeared. They soon reappear across the Outer Rim, striking like a phantom. Using the information Rex gathered, they strike at slave processing and holding centers, freeing the captives and retaliating against the Empire. These attacks are as swift as they are brutal, the rebel stormtroopers marching through these facilities, killing all personnel they see. Vader is at the head, cutting through all defenders, even those who surrender. The slaves are transported somewhere safe as Vader continues his war effort. To that end, Rex reaches out to a pair of former slaves, Kitster and Wald, who now reside in a free slave colony, and help relocate them. Once they are freed, he bombards these facilities, leaving nothing to be used. These attacks send shockwaves across the Empire. With this destruction, Palpatine sends task forces to investigate, but Vader wipes them out as well. While these victories are impressive and free thousands of slaves, they are not enough. Rex warns that it is only a matter of time before the Empire retaliates with overwhelming force. To survive and continue their mission, they will need allies. Even with all the freed clones and slaves willing to take up arms against them, their numbers are too few to challenge the Empire. Instead, Rex suggests recruiting other allies. Many former members of the CIS continue to resist the Empire. While Vader isn't too pleased with this, he doesn't see much choice. Thankfully, the CIS holdouts provide him with droids, ships, and planets to use as bases to strike at his foes. Though these droids and ships are old, worn out, and poorly maintained, they bolster his forces and provide him with the ability to stand up against the Empire. With Captain Rex providing strategic expertise and leading his clones as shock troopers, they manage to score several victories. But while they destroy these facilities and free slaves, this is only part of the problem. They have no way of knowing where these slaves go and what they are working on. Whenever they capture a ship or storm a facility, they find information wiped out, and many Imperials prefer to die than face capture. While some doubtlessly end up in the hands of the Imperial officers and other important figures, these only make up a small portion of the slaves. For Vader, this proves to be a source of constant frustration, not just because of the suffering these people go through, but also because he takes it as a personal insult. The Emperor is always one step ahead of him, and he wishes to change that. In the meantime, all he can do is find a way to satiate his anger. He decides to strike at a nearby industrial plant where a fleet of Star Destroyers is gathered, having returned here for repairs after a recent battle with a local warlord. The maintenance crews are hard at work repairing them, while starfighters fly above, patrolling for oncoming threats. But as they approach the moon, they see Vader's customized Star Destroyer looming like a predator, its turrets opening up and destroying the reconnaissance force before they can react. Inside the ship's bridge, troops keep their heads low, stealing wary glances at the Dark Lord standing at the observation window. He then orders the ship to move in, joined by several smaller CIS ships as they descend upon the repair facilities. The civilian workers and Imperial troops look out in surprise at the sight of the ship. While this normally would be a welcome sight for them, they recognize the markings on Vader's ship, and panic spreads between them. Maintenance workers drop their tools and run, leaving the ships they are working on as sitting ducks. Meanwhile, Imperial troops try to rally and organize a defense. Some rush to their ships and activate their weapons. Others gather weapons or contact for help. However, they do it far too late, as turbo laser fire descends on them, sending sections of the docks up in flames. Some turbo laser fire from the ground tries to counter Vader, but this is a paltry response, and soon half a dozen starships go up in smoke with barely a chance to return fire. While many CIS forces cheer for the success of this attack, some Imperial forces are less secure. It's one thing to free slaves, it's another to strike their fellow Imperials, especially some who don't pose an immediate threat. Among them is Rex.
Was this necessary? This wasn't a rescue, Lord Vader. It was a massacre.
It was a victory. I did not realize you were so concerned about Imperial troops.
I'm concerned with the consequences of your actions. You've just wiped out an entire Imperial fleet in one of the most heavily patrolled sectors in the Outer Rim. They'll be swarming this system within days.
The Empire must be made to fear us. Their fleets are tools of oppression, Captain. Their destruction sends a message.
A message? And what message is that? That we're no better than them? We're here to free slaves, not to satisfy your thirst for vengeance. Every move you make puts their lives, our lives, in great danger.
You forget your place. The Empire will learn to fear the consequences of their actions. That fear will keep them from striking back so easily.
Maybe you should worry less about their fear and your anger, because that might be the death of us. Mark my words, they won't let this go unanswered.
For a moment, silence hangs between them. Vader turns back to the viewport, dismissing Rex with a wave of his hand.
Leave me.
Rex hesitates, his fists clenched, before storming off the bridge. Elsewhere, aboard the Executrix, Grand Moff Tarkin reviews the report with a faint smirk. As reports come in of the recent attacks, many Imperial officers are on edge and wondering how he can smile at a time like this. The destruction of the fleet has reached his ears, and though his superiors demand immediate retaliation, Tarkin has other plans. The former Jedi is a blunt instrument, driven by rage and emotion, predictable in his chaos.
Vader is no mere rebel. He is a wounded animal, dangerous, but ultimately controllable. The key is not to fight him head-on. That would be inefficient. Vader's weakness is his anger. It clouds his judgment, driving him into reckless action. We will use that against him. The loss of this fleet is regrettable, but it means little in his mission to free slaves.
Then, what should we do?
Dispatch scouts to the routes he frequents. Feed him just enough information to keep him chasing ghosts. We will lead him into traps of his own making. Once he is sufficiently isolated and weakened, we will strike swiftly, decisively.
For the next few days, there is quiet as the Empire focuses on gathering information while Vader regroups and leaves a new batch of freed slaves in the Free Colony. The silence is welcome on both sides, but neither is foolish enough to believe this is an end to the fighting. Simply a break. Soon enough, more information leaks get out, prompting Vader to strike in these areas. These reports of slavers' convoys bringing a fresh batch of captives. As predicted, Vader immediately chases after them with most of his fleet. However, while some ships are sent to stop him, most simply scout the areas he is frequenting, searching for signs of life. He must have headquarters somewhere, and they soon find the Free Colony hidden on a moon in the Outer Rim. While Vader is chasing after the slaver fleet, Tarkin orders a small force to strike here, leading their newest weapon to attack this colony. The defenders gather whatever forces they have, scraping up a few old CIS ships to use, but they are no match for them. Desperate pleas reach Vader's ears, urging him to deploy his fleet and reinforce them. Having defeated the slavers' convoy, Vader hurries back. The reports of the attack shook him up. His anger gives way to uncertainty as he wonders whether he will arrive in time and questions how the Empire found him. Unfortunately, by the time he arrives back in the Free Slave Colony, he finds the battle over. The ruins of his ships float above him, while the cities and towns on the surface lay in ruins. The survivors pick through the ruins of their homes, leaving them to try and recover what little remains of their livelihood. Vader's shuttle descends through the haze of smoke and ash. Scattered survivors pick through the rubble, their faces marked by despair. Vader steps off the ramp and Captain Rex follows, his expression grim. They are greeted by Wald and Kitster, both worn and wounded, their clothes torn and stained with soot.
You came too late.
Tell me what happened.
They came out of nowhere. First scouts, TIE fighters, and then a few light cruisers. We managed to hold them off for a while, but then the battle station arrived.
Battle station?
It was massive. Bigger than anything I've ever seen. It was as big as the moon. It didn't fire at the moon directly, but it didn't have to. It wiped out our fleet. Our droid ships never stood a chance. Once we were defenseless, the Star Destroyers started bombing us.
They could have destroyed the entire moon, but they didn't. We got a message from Tarkin. He said we were to live, to spread the story of what we saw, as a warning.
Tarkin. He will pay for this.
This was a message, Vader. The Empire wanted us to see their strength, to see that they can snuff us out anytime they want. How are we supposed to fight that?
We will discuss it.
The council hall, hastily repaired from the bombardment, is packed with resistance leaders, survivors, and droids salvaged from the wreckage.
This changes everything. If the Empire has a weapon like that, there's no way we can win. We need to go into hiding, scatter, and regroup in secret.
Hide? That is what they want. To scare us into giving up. We cannot back down now.
That would be unwise. I estimate our chances of success are 1,521 to 1.
We don't have the strength to fight that thing. We've lost too many people, too many ships. If we want to survive, we need to start thinking smarter. I suggest we regroup and rebuild somewhere deep in the Outer Rim.
This is exactly what the Empire wants. They want us afraid, divided. But this weapon is not just a show of strength. It is the culmination of their tyranny. How many of the slaves we failed to save died in that monstrosity?
How are you certain that is where the slaves are?
Where else could they have gone? No. I know, Tarkin. They are there. They built this weapon on the backs of the very people we are fighting for. If we give up now, their suffering will have been for nothing.
And how do you plan to answer it? With what fleet? What resources? What soldiers? You can't rally an army just by sheer will, Vader.
Vader steps closer to Rex, towering over him.
Watch me. I will not let the Empire go unpunished for their actions.
And there it is. This is about them and you. About your war. Your vendetta. Not the people. These people just lost their homes and families, and you want to bring them back into the war. We should be focusing on keeping them safe.
You are wrong, Rex. I fight for them. I will not pretend that I do not hate the Empire. I do. And I will use that hatred to destroy it. Because if we do not, they will destroy us all.
And that's your problem. You fight for hatred and with anger. Where did that get us? Maybe instead of just freeing slaves, we should make sure they're safe first.
That station will come even if we retreat. We must stop it.
I agree. But with what exactly? Our fleet here isn't enough. We need to regroup first.
Very well.
As the two calm down, they begin planning another strategy. They soon think of a plan that might save them. Vader orders the remaining forces to move to the stronghold of a CIS ally, a surviving separatist warlord who controls a small fleet in the Outer Rim. They do not attempt to hide their movements, broadcasting their intentions on unencrypted channels. As the fleet begins its journey, whispers ripple through the resistance. Fear and uncertainty remain, but Vader's resolve sparks a fragile hope, and Rex's support helps rally them and keep the army together as they make their escape. The battered fleet of droid-controlled CIS ships floats in orbit above a desolate planet. Refugees pour from the survivors' ships onto the planet's surface as the ships prepare for battle.
The Imperial fleet will be on us soon. We've organized the CIS droids and crew into battle positions, but they won't hold for long.
They don't need to. Their sacrifice will pave the way for our victory.
As the Imperial fleet emerges from hyperspace, the CIS ships surge forward. Rather than hold formation, Vader orders a full assault. sending the outdated Separatist ships hurtling toward the Imperial vessels at maximum speed, while his captured Imperial fleet hangs back. The droid-piloted ships, carrying no organic crew, throw themselves into the fray. Some act as shields, absorbing the brunt of turbo-laser fire. Others ram directly into Imperial Star Destroyers, igniting massive explosions that tear through the enemy's lines. Amidst the chaos, Vader's flagship punches through the Imperial blockade, shielded by the destruction of the CIS fleet. The Death Star looms ahead, its dark silhouette casting a shadow over the battlefield. As Vader stares at it for the first time, he feels a slight shiver down his spine, perhaps from taking in the size of the monster. Yet, he shakes it off and orders them to brave the hailstorm of TIE fighters and turbo-laser fire. The crew works frantically trying to keep the ship in one piece. Though klaxons begin to blare, preserving their shields allows them to survive long enough to dock onto the Death Star's airlock.
Bring us in.
As the ship connects with the Death Star, Vader strides out, flanked by Rex and his clones, their blasters at the ready, deflecting blaster fire. Stormtroopers flood the hangar, but the clones, with their superior training, cut through the opposition with brutal efficiency.
Secure the perimeter. First squad, push forward to the bridge. Second squad, head to the slave pens. The rest of you, keep those scum occupied.
Wald and Kitster, armed and determined, lead a small team toward the slave quarters. As they move through the corridors, they encounter terrified slaves, handing out weapons and rallying them to the cause.
This is your chance. Fight for your freedom.
The slaves join the fray, turning the Death Star's lower levels into a chaotic battleground. Vader and Rex storm into the Death Star's command center, fighting through the halls of stormtroopers. But Vader is like a force of nature, and though badly outnumbered, cuts through their ranks with brutal efficiency. However, as they reach the bridge, they are greeted only by slow, mocking applause.
Did you truly believe I would leave the Empire's greatest weapon unguarded, my apprentice?
You are no longer my master.
No, but I am still your better.
The Sith Lord ignites his crimson blade and rushes at Vader. The younger Sith crouches down and braces himself for the attack. As Palpatine leaps at him, he redirects him and sends him flying back. But the Emperor is graceful despite his age, turning his fall into a tumble and landing on his feet. He smiles and rushes at him again, springing forward into a lunging thrust that Vader barely checks. He counters with a slash toward the Emperor's head, but he ducks underneath and kicks Vader across the knee, sending him sprawling. Laughing, Palpatine unleashes a barrage of force lightning that pushes Vader onto the defensive. From the corner of his eye, Tarkin emerges with an electrostaff and rushes at Rex, who uses his blaster as a club to parry each attack and swings at him. The clone's movement seems steadier and his blows more solid. These send Tarkin reeling as Rex looms over him. Though he doesn't show it, he's been itching to get back at the Grand Moff for years. Palpatine tries to bring his lightsaber down when he thinks Vader is defeated, but the Dark Lord rolls aside and jumps to his feet, parrying this attack and deflecting it aside. He then twists and slashes at the Emperor, who uses the Force to push him aside and lets him slide away. Growling, Vader tries to stab at him, but he continues to redirect it. Grunting, Vader instead moves with his entire body, slamming himself forward and knocking Palpatine off balance. The momentary lapse is enough for Vader to swing his lightsaber forward, slashing Palpatine in a narrow gash. He stumbles back as Vader advances on him. Palpatine barely blocks this attack, but the sheer force sends him back. The battle begins to shift in Vader's favor as Palpatine grows slower and less certain under Vader's assault. What saves Palpatine is a smoke grenade thrown by Tarkin. He is also struggling in his fight and drops it to try and get away. White smoke fills the room and obscures Vader's vision. This allows Palpatine to lunge forward and wound him on the shoulder, but Vader prevents him from landing a second blow as he blocks his next attack and twists, driving his lightsaber into the Emperor's chest. Palpatine stumbles back, his laughter fading into silence as he collapses. But through the smoke, Tarkin takes this chance to run out into the halls. Vader takes a step after him, but a hand grabs his arm.
Forget him. The fleet is still out there. The people need the Death Star's weapons.
For a moment, Vader hesitates, torn between his thirst for vengeance and duty. But as he looks at Rex in the control console, he curses himself and then runs over to the targeting system. Just in time, too, as the battle is not going the Resistance's way. Though their initial offensive took the Imperials off guard, their fleet is now rallying and pushing their ships back. The Death Star's super laser powers up, and one by one, Star Destroyers are obliterated. The remaining ships wisely retreat, allowing the Resistance to send in more ships to support the rebels inside the Death Star. The loss of their battle station is a monumental blow for the Empire, and even with Tarkin managing to escape, the defeat falls squarely on his shoulders, and his opponents jump at the chance to target him, forcing him to sue for peace to deal with these foes. The Resistance demanded that their control over the territories be acknowledged, and that all slaves be released. Tarkin, pressed from all sides, has no choice but to agree, along with the assurances that the Death Star will not be used against Imperials. Instead, the Death Star is used as habitat for freed slaves, and Vader begins targeting other organizations, such as the Hutts and Zagirians, to free their slaves as well. That's our theory. The Star Wars universe is a galaxy filled with exciting stories and possibilities, and we love exploring them. If you want to accompany us on this journey to a galaxy far, far away, then please like, share, and subscribe to our channel.